Tottenham went away to Wolves, having lost their first game of the week. Obviously, the circumstances on Monday to Chelsea, 2 players sent off, lots of injuries, all kinds of problems for Postecoglou. So they go to Wolverhampton Wanderers. They go 1-up early through a Brennan Johnson goal, and then late on concede 2 goals, which means back-to-back defeats for Spurs. We've just done a breakdown on the Tactics show, which is on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. Anyone who wants to have a look at that, just to look at the 2 goals that Spurs concede. Is it as simple as saying, because of who wasn't there, that possibly caused the defeat, or should the players out there, the 11, have done a little bit better?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think if you've got Van der Ven and Maddison, I think the game's different. I really do. I think Maddison gets on the ball more, they dominate possession, they create more opportunities. Van der Ven play that higher line, you can get back into positions. I said to you when we were watching the game, we were chatting about it, and I was saying, Van der Ven, we talk about his pace, but it's actually the reading of the game, his understanding, and he's such a young player. He's had the same effect, I feel, that Van Dijk's had on Liverpool. He's come in, he's got that stature, that aura about him. You almost see opposition forwards looking at him thinking, don't fancy taking him on in a 1v1, or I don't quite think I've got the strength to outmuscle him and things like that. So already he's got a psychological upper hand on people, which is a great thing to have. The other side of it, you'd look at it and go, well, you've got 2 international centre-halves playing, Eric Dyer and Ben Davies. Should they be able to deal with runners through them, through passes? They should, but late on in the game, when you haven't played that many minutes, legs are tired, mind's tired. It's like the constant pressure that comes on you. If that was maybe 2 games down the line and they'd have 2 lots of 90 minutes in the legs, and then they get to that stage, I think they see the game out. I don't think they're as mentally tired and physically tired. And that's something that you look at it, and Postecoglou, I'm sure, listen, he's a smart guy, isn't he? He's probably looking at the same thing, thinking, we could have defended it, we could have done better, but it's a big task.
You did right, because I did hear a bit of a press conference last night after the game, and he sort of said, I was a little concerned for some of the players who haven't played at that level for that long time. Eric Dyer's first Premier League start. It does, that fatigue sometimes is in the head as much as in the legs, and you're switching off and you're looking for a rest. It's interesting because actually, having done the breakdown we did on the second goal, which is the Lamina goal from the free kick, a thought's just come back to my head, and it came through when we were watching Newcastle training the summer series away in America. I remember Eddie Howe going through some game type situations, and the opposition had the ball, and the first thing Eddie Howe coached was one of his players to get in front of the ball and stop a quick free kick. So he had Almiron doing it, he had Trippier doing it, he had Joe Ellington doing it at times. You don't always have the same player, and he did a little thing which made me laugh, and I thought very clever. He said he had the player to get in front of the ball and then go down and tie his laces as if he's doing his laces. Now, most of the players haven't got laces in the boots anyway, so I don't know how that was. But obviously, it's just a ploy to stop the opposition playing a quick free kick so you can get organised. And I remember now watching the second Spurs goal today, and anybody gets a chance to look, referee gives a free kick, Wolves want to take it quickly, Emerson Royal gets involved with trying to running and kicking the ball away, that gets him out of position. But the big thing, it's just come back to me, is that no Spurs player thinks about getting in front of the ball and stopping a quick free kick, which just gives us time to fill our holes in behind, get our organisation, and maybe give us a chance to defend. We're now talking 90 plus 7 minutes in the game. It's at 1-1, Sarabia scored one. Lamina's running forward. Could they have, just a bit of thought and maybe a bit of discipline have saved that situation?
And you're talking about, in those positions, you're talking about Højbjerg, and then you're talking about Bentancur, 2 experienced players who should know better, should be thinking in that position, get on top of it, do something. I think Son was in and around the same area as well, another experienced player. But then I go back to them tired minds again. Is that part of it? Is there enough leadership on the pitch for someone to do that? Son's not that type of... Son's a leader of... showing what he can do on the pitch.
The way he plays, you take a lead from
He's
that.
not a shouter and a baller and an organiser. And do they need that figure in midfield to be able to do that? Because I think when you go back to Newcastle there and you make a great example of it, Kieran Trippier is the one straight away you'd be thinking, he's in his head, He's played for Simeone. Simeone knows the dark arts of the games, and that's how you slow a game down. That's how you frustrate teams, and that's what you've got to do. But I just think when he'd on the pitch, he'd be the one saying, get in front of the free kick, slow it down, make sure it happens. Yeah, but it's a great point.
Just wonder with back-to-back defeats now for Spurs in the space of, 6 days, has the break sort of come at a good time? You get one or two, I know, injuries, and these, we're talking about Van der Ven and Maddison being maybe next year before we see them in the white, but other players, suspension, Udogie comes back, he was only 1 game suspended, Romario we know is 3, which makes it a little bit difficult. But has the break almost come at a good time, go away, come back together again, we go again kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think also as well, if there is a game this weekend, all the media's attention will be on Tottenham. What's the response going to be? How are they going to deal with this situation? Exactly. From suddenly having this unbelievable start, we go back to being Spursy, and that's the problem. That's the title they want to get away from. So it's a case of, I'm sure it's very difficult with an international break, because for a team like Tottenham, they'll have multiple internationals within the changing room who will be going away on international breaks now. So it's not a case of where Ange Postecoglou can get them in and sort of get a little bit of a reset and look back at the work they've done and go, hang about, lads, would you have taken this at the beginning of the season?
For sure.
Because the position we were in, no one would have put us in this position. They'd have probably said we'd have been around 7th or 8th, and how's Postecoglou getting on? Can he have an impact on them? He's not quite done what he'd wanted to. Well, they're in a magnificent position, so take the positives from it. I think that's what they've got to do, and they've got to just sort of take stock by taking a step back from the situation, the international break, and go, no, we're in a great position here.
Absolutely. And I just want to give a mention actually to Gary O'Neill, because he's a guy often that's not in the spotlight in many respects. I think he was on Sky Football, Monday Night Football a few weeks ago, showed a little bit of his coaching and how he works. I think startled 1 or 2 people and got people's attention. And just as the Wolves manager, his team play good football. They're well set up. They've had some terrible decisions go against them, VAR and the likes. I mean, I think the back-to-back penalties that have been given against them that weren't. I think they got an apology this weekend for one last week. Yeah, it was Hee Chang-Wang, the first one, and then Fabio Silva, I think it was last weekend.
That's 3 penalties then, the Luton one as well.
And so it's they've had some terrible luck. But I just think he's one of those managers who I think people are starting to warm to. People are starting to understand how good he is. He's working with a group. He went under difficult circumstances. I think he had 4 days training before the start of the season. We saw them play at Man United, where they played United off the park and lost 1-0 the first day. But difficult time. But again, a guy who wants to coach, who gets players better, and Wolves play some good football. I tell you, they're a decent football team. So a little bit of credit to Gary O'Neill.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.